To understand the actual world as it is, not as we should wish it to be, is the beginning of wisdom. Bertrand Russell, philosopher. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you for giving me your time so early. And yes, we're even starting the show a little early. What in the world? DL, why aren't it's not 7:30? What's going on here? Well, I intended to start it at 7, but that was pushing it. So here's if you've been watching the show, you know what's up. You know that I can't stop talking about trying to get into this Rumble Creator program, which requires me to have 30 hours of streaming time in the last 30 days. And since I decided to take this journey, if you will, in the middle of the month, I had to rapidly find a way to just stream a bunch. So I've been streaming like on the weekends and on weeknights, and I've been streaming longer, to compensate because it's like a rolling 30. So it's like you go back to, yesterday's 30 is different than today's 30. So where am I presently? I am presently at 28 and a half hours. I need an hour and a half by noon. And then I should be able, if I make that, I should be able to qualify. And as far as I can tell, there would be nothing else that I'm missing. Because the only other things are I had to have 100 followers. I put the word out on social media, and people were responded, and some friends retweeted me, and I got some more follows. So now I think like you had to have 100 subscriptions on Rumble, and I now have like 120, which I know. If you're like, dude, 120, my child plays Minecraft and has a YouTube channel with more subscribers than that. Well, you know what? I don't play Minecraft that much to be able to make a YouTube channel of it. So, um, and my son might not even like it. He might be like, "Dad, you're ruining it. I want to watch somebody else." So whatever. Like I'm doing my best here. So, and then the other thing was I had to have a Rumble subscription. Okay, I can handle that. So I started early today. You might say, okay, well, 28.5 means you just need 1.5. Mm-mm-mm. No, no. We're going to do this like third parties collect signatures. I'm going to try to go over just to have a little buffer. Okay. So I'm aiming for a 2-hour show today, right now. And I've got it planned. Like, if like with all my material that I got queued up here, if for some reason I can't make 2 hours, I'm not gonna drag it out. I'm not gonna be like, what it's not gonna be like one of those corporate meetings where it's all done. Like, it's a 30-minute meeting. They got it completed in 15, and everybody's like, well, yeah, so, how about that new company policy? And, Fred's like, that's 6 months ago, right? Like, we're not gonna do that. I do talk a lot already, but I'm not gonna drag it out on purpose. I will just if I only make an hour and a half, fine. I make an hour and a half. I'll see what it says, and then I will plan to do something at, like, maybe around 11, and throw another 45 minutes in there or so. So I have until noon. So that's what's going on. That's why we're early. I'm normally not early. I'm aiming to stay at 7:30. I may have to switch things around once I actually get into the program, because I have to maintain 30 hours, and I it's not entirely clear, but I'm going to read it this way. I have to maintain 30 hours over any 30-day period, while I'm in the program. It's not clear. And the way the program works is, once you're qualified, then you have to maintain that 30 hours. But you also have to do some other things, like you have to stream like 5 hours a month to Rumble Premium. So I will be adjusting some things so I can accommodate 5 hours. Now, out of that 30 total hours, five of it can be Rumble Premium. So I can do 25 hours to the public, and then 5 hours to Rumble Premium subscribers. So I'm going to be figuring. So there's going to be some changes. And since I stream Monday through Friday, if you do your math, that tends to be only about 20 days out of any 30-day period. And so if it's only 20 days, if you do the math, that means an hour and a half episode every day. So I might have to start at like 7, or, but then I also have to consider Rumble Premium. So, like, where am I going to fit that in? Maybe I'll do like the first hour will be just public, and then switch over to Rumble Premium. I don't know yet. I'm going to figure this out. But right now, the focus is getting into the program, because then I could make some money, right? And who doesn't want to make money? All right, what are we going to talk about today? Let's see. And Rob, before we get into that, let me point out, my VA lady says on Rumble it's followers. All right. Sorry, folks. This is a nitpicky crowd. It's like you're all a bunch of libertarians or something. I need one of those. I'll get that. On YouTube, it's subs. That reminds me, Liberty Dad needs 500 subscribers to start getting to the point to receive super chats. Please, please, please sub on his YouTube. Absolutely. Please go do that. Subscribe to me on Rumble. Follow me. I said it wrong already. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on X. You can even follow me on Facebook. I'm not as active on Facebook, just because it takes so much time. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk some stuff. So I see that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, is now going after one of his own cities. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a thing. He's actually doing that. So let's take a look at what he had to say. He posted this on X. It says, anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies. Oh, okay. Sent a letter to the city of San Marcos today, condemning its proposed anti-Semitic resolution, openly flouting Texas state law. Texas will not tolerate anti-Semitism. Whoa, wait a minute. Like, they've got anti-Semitic resolution? Really? Oh, okay. Like, that seems serious. He probably should take action. But let's take a look at it. Let's see what he's talking about here. So, in this article from KXAN News, it says Governor Greg Abbott on Tuesday issued a stark warning to the San Marcos City Council regarding its consideration of a resolution calling for the transfer of, quote, permanent sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territories, end quote, and an, quote, embargo on the state of Israel. Well, that sounds a lot less anti Semitic, unless you're stretching definitions. In a letter to San Marcos, Abbott said that the city is required to comply with state law when entering into a grant agreement with the state of Texas, which includes laws that prohibit a local government from supporting the boycotts of Israel. Oh, okay. So let's walk this through real quick. Okay. If you're a local government, who do you answer to? Your local citizens, right? And if the citizens demand something and it's within your power to do, you should possibly, I don't, not always. I mean, there are times where like you can't, but you should likely consider doing it. Now, there are exceptions. Like if you say, hey, if the citizens say, hey, we want to ban guns altogether, no guns in this city whatsoever. Well, you can't do that because you have a Second Amendment, right? There are some very limited um, rules that you have to follow by. The Bill of Rights, right? Our Constitution is one of them. And then Governor Greg Abbott is correct. You do have to abide by Texas state law. So, he's kind of had this hierarchy. So I get it. I'm a big fan of home rule. So generally speaking, I'm going to look and say, whatever a local community wants to do, as long as it doesn't violate the Constitution, they should be permitted to do. Right. And I guess I suppose you could argue about state law. I would only support it if the state law were supporting some sort of right or protecting a right of a citizen, a real right, not where people are like, I have the right to buy a nice home and, for the wage that I'm making. Not that kind of right. The real ones. Okay. Like your right to life, your right to liberty, things that are generally well understood and have been for many, 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 many years. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at this resolution, and then we'll look at Governor Abbott's response. So let's see what we got here. Let's do this one, I believe. That it? Yeah, there we go. So here's the resolution. I pulled it up from their site. Can I make it a little bigger? I don't know. I don't know if I can make it a little bigger. Looks a little small. We'll go with it. We'll go with it for now. Man, no, we got a moment. We have a moment. So let me try to make this a little more bigger. How about that? And you can just read above my head, I guess. Or I can just make me a little smaller. We'll make me a little smaller. I'm not that important anyway. Let's do this. There we go. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, this should be good enough if you're trying to read online. But don't worry, I'm going to read it to you. So here, it's a couple pages, but I think it's important because we want to know: are they being anti-Semitic? Okay, that's important. So we're going to read this, and I'll be quick. A resolution calling for an immediate, permanent, and sustained ceasefire in occupied Palestine, arms embargo on the state of Israel, recognition of Palestinian sovereignty, and protection of constitutional rights. Okay, well, I'm not really seeing anything anti-Semitic there. Whereas we, the San Marcos City Council, strive daily to ensure all people's health, safety, dignity, and freedom, we follow the lead of the World Health Organization, United Nations, Save the Children, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, His Holiness Pope Francis, more than 150 countries, and countless other organizations in the United States and around the world in calling for a ceasefire because what happens internationally impacts our constituents locally. Okay, I'm not seeing anything wrong there. Let's continue. We believe in the shared humanity of all people, reiterate that all people are entitled to live life in safety and free from violence, and affirm these common values held by San Marco residents and leaders. Okay, so the first whereas clause, we're good. Don't see any real major issues with it. Now, I will take issue overall, but we're looking right now for anti-Semitism. Okay, because that's what Governor Greg Abbott said. Anti-Semitism. We recognize our residents' basic First Amendment rights, including the right to criticize the political beliefs and policies of the United States and Israel, and affirm our commitment to the constitutional rights of all people to free speech and assembly, especially in the face of increasing efforts to criminalize protest and suppress dissent across the country. I mean, yes, I totally agree with that. I should use a little button there. Yes. Whereas we stand in solidarity with our constituents, students, faith leaders, organizers, and community members who have mobilized in San Marco and across the nation in support of Palestinian human rights and to call for an end to U.S. complicity in human rights violations abroad. We recognize that protest is a vital part of our democratic tradition and reflection of our community's moral conscience. Okay, so again, I'm okay with this. No anti Semitism so far, but maybe it's coming. Just hold on to your seats, folks. Whereas we unequivocally condemn targeting civilians, no matter their faith or ethnicity, which constitutes a violation of international law and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. We recognize the equal right to self-determination and peaceful, safe futures for Palestinian people. So it doesn't sound anti-Semitic yet, so we're good with this. Whereas the continued bombardment in the Gaza Strip and assault on the West Bank comes in the context of the 77-year displacement of Palestinians and illegal occupation of their land. The United Nations Security Council has declared the 57-year-long settlement and the 18-year blockade of Gaza unlawful. In addition, in July 2024, the United Nations Security Council declared Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory unlawful and that, quote, all states are under an obligation not to recognize, end quote, the decades-long occupation. Okay, now, for some, this might be anti-Semitic, and those some would be people that are stretching the definition beyond anything reasonable. Like, you can disagree with the facts here, right? You could disagree with and say, no, it wasn't a displacement of Palestinians, whatever, right? You can make those arguments. But again, this isn't anti-Semitism so far. But we don't really have there's no good working definition of anti-Semitism that everybody operates on. The governments right now are operating on the international, what is it, the IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Association. Yes, they have a definition. I talked about it in some of my past episodes, and I said I think this is a problem for our governments to institute because a lot of the governments in the United States, like somewhere between the federal and even all the way down to the local level, they were basically saying like, look, anti-Semitism is what the IHRA says. Well, the problem that I have with that is when we read laws, I expect everything to be in the law so that I know exactly what the law says. But the problem is when the law refers to a definition external to the law, then what happens when that definition changes? Does the law get updated? Does it account for that? No, it does not. So the IHRA, they could go further and they could say, hey, if it's anti-Semitic for you to even disagree with Israel, which they don't quite do. But they could say that. And then all these governments would now have it enshrined in their law that whatever the IHRA says is what constitutes anti-Semitism. So I oppose it on that. But looking at this whereas clause, I don't see an issue. All right, let's continue. Maybe there's a whereas, because now we're starting to talk more about Israel and Palestine. So maybe they're going to get into it. Whereas Israel has engaged in large-scale military assault by land, air, and sea on Gaza. Okay, has that happened? Yes. Home to approximately 2.3 million people. Also, yes. Of which half are children. Yes. Hundreds of thousands of lives are at imminent risk in Gaza without an immediate, permanent, and sustained ceasefire and arms embargo. Yes. Unimpeded flow of humanitarian relief in the forms of food, water, shelter, and medical care. Also, yes. So these seem to be pretty factual. No anti-Semitism here. There is this bombing campaign. There's this military assault. Whereas civilians living in Palestine are being killed at an unprecedented rate. Okay, this one might be arguable. Like some people point out and they say, oh, you can't call it a genocide because look at this hockey stick graph going up. And this graph of the population. Okay, well, as the population goes up, how do you get a population that goes up? You have more children. So if you're killing a bunch of people, but the population's still rising, and that's your argument why it's not a genocide, then you kind of box yourself in at least to say, well, I acknowledge that there's a large number of children here. So that seems important. But hey, maybe acknowledging this stuff is anti Semitic. But nothing here is saying like calling for any harm against Israel, calling for any harm against Jews, right? There's no derogatory like talking about Jews being greedy or any of this other stuff. There's none of that. Just like, here's the lay of the land. Let's continue. Whereas civilians living in Palestine are being killed at, oh, no, I already read that one. The Lancet in July of 2024, according to a study published in The Lancet, July of 2024, over 186,000 Palestinians had been killed since Israel's invasion of the Gaza Strip, around 43%, which have been children. Either that is a factual thing or it is not. Now, you could quibble with the word invasion, but that's not anti-Semitism, right? To say like, hey, this action is that, I mean, a lot of people here in the country are saying it's an invasion um for immigrants to come over here. So, like, clearly the word invasion has a flexible meaning because you got people on the right, they're calling immigrants that have been here for 2 decades, raising families, invaders, because that's what invaders do. They go to a country and they establish a life. A lot of invasion going on, right? So the right calls that an invasion, and then the left-ish, or at least the anti-war folks, they're calling Israel's, many of them, not all of them, are calling Israel's actions an invasion. Now they're talking about like overall. I don't think they're talking about just this one response. So anyway, like that's either factual or it's not. Over 1,000 medical workers and 173 journalists have been killed. Either that's factual or it's not. Facts are not anti-Semitic. In addition, over 100,000 Gazans are wounded, over 2 million are displaced, and over 10,000 are missing under the rubble. Again, either fact or not. Numbers, data on people, that's not anti-Semitism. Let's continue. Palestinians of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faiths are now facing a humanitarian crisis. Oh, wait a minute. They said Palestinians who are Jewish are facing a humanitarian crisis. That doesn't sound very anti-Semitic. Like they didn't say Christians and Muslims they said Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have since accused Israel of committing acts of genocide and engaging in collective punishment. Okay? Is it either that's true or it's not. Now, again, some people argue with the definition of genocide for various reasons. And you can have that debate and you can say, does this really qualify as a genocide? Personally, I would argue that it's not a genocide because genocide tends to be a really clear and deliberate action to exterminate a group of people. So you can think of it like when you look at Rwanda, right? The Hutu and the Tutsis, right? I think it was the Hutu were the ones that were dominating in that conflict. And they were literally trying to like they said, they called them cockroaches and they called them all these other things. And they're like, we're going to eliminate you. And they tried. Like, so there was ample evidence to say like you are intentionally killing these people with the goal of exterminating, right? Like that was very clear. That's not what I think Israel is doing. I just think they're overdoing their response personally as somebody who's anti-war. So I think that like you have the right to respond. So that's not my issue. And I've said it many times that like people go, oh, you just support Hamas. Like, no, go ahead and kill all the Hamas you want. I don't have an issue. How about we not kill innocent civilians? How about we figure out how to not kill innocent women and children? Right? Like that's been my goal. So I don't see anything here that is, I got my little button here. I don't see anything that's anti-Semitic. It's good to go. It's fine. Whereas, while speaking at the UN Human Rights Council on March 26, 2024, Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, stated, quote, "Following nearly 6 months of unrelenting Israel assault on occupied Gaza, it is my duty to report on the worst of what humanity is capable of. There are reasonable grounds to believe that the threshold indicating the commission of the crime of genocide has been met. I implore member states to abide by their obligations, which start with imposing an arms embargo and sanctions on Israel, and so ensure that the future does not continue to repeat itself." So, again, we're at this definition of genocide. Does it qualify? So, if the UN has a particular definition of genocide, and we look and we see, hey, that definition matches what Israel's doing. This is not anti-Semitism, particularly if they changed it, if they changed the definition of genocide so that Israel would qualify, well, then you could maybe start making an argument. But if the definition precedes this particular event, and then they turn around and go, well, looks like you're doing exactly what we described a long time ago and have applied elsewhere and nobody complained and called it anti anything. Well, then if the shoe fits, you wear it. So I'm okay with this. And again, okay with like, is it anti Semitism? Does it rise to that level or not? I don't think so. Whereas on Thursday, January 11th, 2024, and Friday, January 12th, 2024, the International Court of Justice at The Hague held public hearings in the case brought forward by South Africa against Israel for alleged violations of the Genocide Convention on the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide during its operations in Gaza. South Africa's application contends that, quote, acts and omissions by Israel are genocidal in character as they are committed with the requisite specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza as part of the broader Palestinian national, racial, and ethnic group, end quote. South Africa's actions to receive provisional protection for the people of Gaza are supported by 32 countries and over 1,000 organizations worldwide. So again, we're continuing with this issue of, is it a genocide or not? Now, I think we've already talked about the genocide element, but I think this notion that, hey, there are 32 countries and over 1,000 organizations worldwide. We can look at all 32 countries. We can look at all 1,000 organizations, and we can say, do they typically exhibit anything that would qualify as anti-Semitism? And I would argue they probably don't. I don't know for sure, but I'm just gonna take a wild stab that 32 countries, not because of the number so much, but because we would probably already know about it. Like we would already be hearing, hey, these countries are anti-Semitic. Don't go there. Right. And we could look and say, wow, look, that list of known countries that are anti-Semitic happen to be the same ones that are opposing this issue over in Gaza. Right? Then you could make that argument. But I haven't seen one. So therefore, I'm going to assume that nobody thought these 32 countries were anti-Semitic before that. Nobody thought these 1,000 organizations were anti-Semitic, which there might be. In 1,000 organizations, I would expect that there's got to be some that are just anti-Israel, anti-Jew. Maybe more anti-Israel as a cover, but maybe there's some. I'll give it to you. But I'm otherwise not seeing an issue here, so I'm good with it. Whereas July 19th, 2024, the International Court of Justice provided the advisory opinion requested by the United Nations General Assembly regarding legal consequences arising from the policies and practices of Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. The court declared Israel guilty of apartheid and its military occupation illegal. The World Court ordered Israel to completely end its military occupation of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. The ICJ ruling today affirms the legal obligation for all states to end complicity in Israel's illegal occupation and gross violations of human rights, and to act to ensure respect for international law. Okay, it's interesting that sometimes what did I hear the other day? Oh yeah, it was in the Dave Smith Douglas Murray debate. Douglas Murray Douglas Murray referred to like, no, it wasn't. No, I'm sorry. It was the guy who I'm trying to think of his name. It was Dave Smith, and he was on Pierce Morgan, and he was debating that dude from the War College, and the War College guy kept referring to our legal system, and he was like, "Oh, international law, this international law, that." And while that's not the direction that Dave was going, so it was not an appropriate response, it is interesting if you look back and you say, well, he's appealing to international law, which has been worked out over many years, hundreds and decades and hundreds of years. And so therefore he's like, his argument is like, these laws are good because we've basically worked them out over time. Okay, fine. So they've been worked out over time, which means that the International Court of Justice and other world bodies, the UN and so on and so forth, then were they considered anti-Semitic before this, or are they just basically following international law and saying, hey, by the way, your actions fit this, right? So it's, again, you can argue and say that they're not illegally occupying, but we have to look, and we look at the definition, how it's understood at the international level. What is an occupation? How is it understood? Is that definition the same one that they've had for a while, or has it been modified to help Israel qualify? Like that, I would say you could argue is anti-Semitic. All right, we're almost done. I promise you. There's a lot of whereases in this. Israel's. Oh no, I missed one. On November 21st, International Criminal Court (ICC) issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for war crimes and crimes against humanity during Israel's assault in Gaza, committed from at least 8 October 2023 until at least 20 May 2024. Okay, so now they're like, does the International Criminal Court have the power to issue arrest warrants for international leaders? Okay. If they can do that for any international leader, they can do that for Israel. Okay. But then we have to look and say, all right, what are the alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity? Are they things that were considered war crimes actions prior, or again, did we modify them just so we could go get this one guy? Because if these are the same definitions that we've been operating on, that other people have had the standard held to them, then no, it's not anti-Semitic. So I'm not seeing a problem here, right? Again, just looking for anti-Semitism. Israel's continuous illegal military occupation, land expropriation, and expansion of settlements in the West Bank severely violates Palestinian rights and living conditions. Since January 1st, 2025, Israeli forces have conducted extensive raids, resulting in significant displacement and casualties among Palestinians in the West Bank. The operation has led to the displacement of over 40,000 Palestinians from their homes, marking the largest displacement since 1967. So again, they're putting out numbers and facts, and we can look them up and say, is this true or is it not true? Right? Like, what is factual here? Did 40,000 Palestinians really get displaced? Okay, if that's a fact, then move on. Where is that the largest displacement since 1967? If it's a fact, then move on. It's not anti-Semitic, right? Um, and so I'm not seeing a problem here. Still not seeing a problem. No anti-Semitism here. Whereas March 2nd, 2025. Man, I'm getting tired of reading these things. Are we almost done? Goodness. All right, we're almost done. I'm going to try to expedite this. Violation of international humanitarian laws in the existing ceasefire agreement. Israel has blocked the delivery of food, fuel, essential supplies, and electrical power to Gaza as an act of collective punishment. Either this happened or it didn't, right? So I'm going to say it's still good. Shipping arms to Israel violates numerous U.S. federal laws and policies, including the conventional arms transfer policy. They list a bunch of others. Okay. Again, either that's true or it's not, right? Like either the U.S. is violating something or we're not. So I don't see a problem here as far as anti-Semitism. Whereas 2024 alone, the U.S. sent Israel $18 billion to bankroll 70% of the ongoing genocide. Okay, we can quibble with the idea of whether or not it's a genocide. You can say, yes, it is. No, it's not. You can have that definitional debate. However, let's just say the action currently in Gaza. Did the U.S. send them $18 billion that paid for 70% of the actions going on in Gaza? That's a yes or no question. That is not an anti-Semitic statement or question, right? There's no anti-Semitism there. It's either true or it's not. Now, if it's not true, then you can start looking at, well, maybe you're being anti-Semitic because now you're making up stuff to make them look bad. But again, we have to identify, is it true or not? And they have a link, like you can click on. I'm not going to. According to the United States Campaign for Palestinian Rights, um, let's see, is that yeah, 100,000 million billion trillion, $1 trillion. Is that 1 trillion, right? 1,405,468,510 from Texas tax dollars went to Israel's purchase of weapons. 4,434,675 of this came from San Marcos residents' taxes. Okay, either this is true or not. And it's kind of weird that they have such a very specific number. Like I don't know how they determine this, but it's either factual or it's not. And to be honest with you, if $4 million from San Marcos residents went to taxes and then went to paying for this, then they have a right to say something. It's their money, right? And they're representatives. Like I can see where I would go to my city council and I could say, "Hey, city council, looks like here in Jacksonville, so many millions of dollars went to this federal thing. I don't like it. I want you to put out a resolution opposing it on my behalf." That's why we have representatives. They are supposed to represent us. Whereas members of this community demand a true ceasefire and the complete cessation of weapons shipments to Israel, as the United States is the primary supplier of arms to Israel, which are used in violation of international law to carry out genocide against Palestinians and instigate conflict in neighboring countries. Either this is true or not. Right? You can call for a ceasefire. There's nothing anti-Semitic about ceasefires. Okay. Um, and you can claim that it's a violation of international law. People claim that certain things are violations of laws all the time, right? We can, again, argue whether or not it's a genocide or not, okay? And instigate conflict in neighboring countries. I mean, I don't know. Yemen, Iran, like, I don't know. Maybe they are, right? These are things that we can evaluate. Israel, like any other state, is subject to criticism. And so far, I'm not seeing anything that rises to the level of anti-Semitism. Whereas San Marcos stands to benefit from a reallocation of local funds towards essential domestic priorities, such as transportation, education, housing, healthcare, environmental protection, and public goods and services, which currently face neglect due to state and federal appropriations to Israel's money. Now, you could argue and say, okay, there's lots of money that could be reallocated, and you're just picking on this one. And that you can make that, but that's not anti-Semitic. They just might say, "Hey, it aligns with the fact that I think that there's something wrong going over there." So on top of believing that what is happening is immoral, then you might say, "I don't want to pay for this immorality." Seems pretty simple. So then I'm not going to read all this is so much, but that now, therefore, be it resolved, the council of the city of San Marco urges our state and federal delegations and the president of the United States to use their authority to, and now let's read the first one, advance an immediate, permanent, and sustained ceasefire and arms embargo, along with the unrestricted and unimpeded entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza and the restoration of food, fuel, water, electricity, and medical supplies as necessary step toward preserving all remaining Palestinian life and peace. Okay. And then they go on and add a few more, basically like, hey, do this, do that. You can go read it. None of them are anti-Semitic, right? In fact, at the very end, it says, further resolved that the San Marcos City Council condemns anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, and all xenophobic rhetoric and attacks. So, no, it's not anti-Semitic that I can tell in any good faith sense. Now, let me say this before I look at Governor Abbott's. Well, we don't even need to look at Governor Abbott. I think I've spoken enough about this. I'll just give you my final thoughts on this. Um, Other than the tax issue, I don't think it's appropriate for cities to worry about international issues. Jacksonville did it, and I criticized them, and I was like, "Look, seriously, focus on Jacksonville. You don't need because, like, what is a resolution in the first place? Well, a resolution is just a formality. It's a formal way to take a position on a matter that isn't binding. It's non-binding. So, like, you can make a resolution, and it has no power whatsoever. It's just basically like it's a strongly worded letter. It's effectively what it is. So I generally oppose international things from both state and local communities. But if you want to take the tax angle and say, hey, look, like if Florida or we know Florida won't, but let's say Florida were to determine, hey, this much tax money has been going to this much tax money has been going to this federal thing. We demand a stop to it. You can do that for any federal thing. And honestly, I would love it if Florida did that on the regular. Like just started going down the line and saying, all right, what federal things are tax dollars being paid for from Floridians? And then they could just make resolutions encouraging the government, the federal government to stop paying for those things. I'm cool with that. I have no issue. All right. So again, aside from the tax angle, I don't think it's appropriate for the city council, but it's nothing I think that the governor should worry about. If Jackson, like when Jacksonville did their resolution, I would not call for the governor, Ron DeSantis, to come down and say, okay, you're in violation of Florida law and we're going to get you. I don't think how's that saying go from Jesus? A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Like I don't think you need to fight each other. And I think in that particular case, it's not worth worrying about. Let it go. The city's doing their thing, whatever. And it's a non-binding resolution. Governor Abbott can go, he can look at it and be like, that's a nice letter. Have a nice day. That's all he's got to do. So that's where I am on that. Let's see here. Joe says, damn military-aged immigrants coming here and working hard labor jobs for low pay while paying taxes to go to genocides. Okay, well, it depends on if you believe it's a genocide or not. I don't think it's a genocide. I don't think it rises to that level. I do think it's immoral and wrong, and I do think that that all governments, if they do it, any governments that are involved in any way, shape, or form, should only be involved in trying to resolve the hostilities to an end. That's it, right? Israel needs, you can defend yourself, but there is a limit, right? Like if somebody comes in, let me put it this way. And this is kind of similar to Dave Smith's analogy. If somebody slaps my kid, I don't have the right to go over and stab his whole family, right? There is a proportionality limit here. If you slap my kid, I might punch you in the face. And I think that's very legitimate, right? But I don't have the right to go and stab you and then go hunt down your wife and your kid and stab them. I don't have that right, right? Because I got to stop using that filler word, right? I don't have that right because it's disproportionate to the attack on my son's right, which is the right to be free from aggression. But there's proportionality. So I think there's a proportionality problem over there. I'm not in any way suggesting that Hamas is okay or that they're good people or that the Israeli people that were attacked deserve it. None of that. I'm just saying there is a point where you're going too far. All right, let's continue on here. Yes, Keith is correct. I make a distinction between the governments and the people. Absolutely. It's weird. I'm finding out that a lot of my mutuals are Jewish. This is not a problem. I don't care. I just didn't realize that I had so many friends. Like some of them I know in real life, but I didn't realize that so many people I know are Jewish in some way. Like either they're fully Jew or they're part Jew. I didn't realize because I'm as I'm scrolling, I see some of my friends and they're like, yeah, I'm Jewish. And I'm like, you are? Like, I didn't know that. Like, okay, cool, whatever. But I didn't realize that I had so many Jewish friends. And all my Jewish friends, all of them? Yeah, I think all of them. I think every Jewish friend that I particularly have, just because most of them are in the same liberty circles as me, they oppose the actions over in Israel. And they're like, look, this is a government issue, right? The government of Israel is a problem. Benjamin Netanyahu is a problem, right? This isn't to say that all the Jewish people in Israel are a problem necessarily, right? Just the same way that all the American people aren't necessarily bad guys per se when our government does something immoral. Now, you could look and say, well, they're your representatives, but sometimes representatives do things that aren't very representative, right? And for me, taking, a war act, that's not representative. What the deportations that are happening and the skirting of due process, that doesn't represent me. Many things don't represent me. Many things don't represent Keith and Joe and other people that are watching, right? It doesn't matter whether you're liberal, conservative, if you're a libertarian, if you're a commie, right? Whatever. There are things that the government does that don't represent you. So it's very critical that we make a distinction. And I've said this before. I promise you, if I'm willing to criticize my own government, no other government's going to be off limits for me. None. I will criticize any government at my leisure, at my discretion, and I will not tolerate any limitation on that. And I will raise hell the moment somebody tries to limit me and say, "No, no, no, no. You can't talk, you can't criticize this country." No, no. I will criticize any government I choose. Come and get me. All right, enough of that one. Let's move on. What else we got? We got oh, you know what? No. One more thing. I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show some of the comments to Greg Abbott because I thought some of those were good. So let's transition over here. All right. So let's see here. I want to move some things around on my screen just so I can better see. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Give me a second here. All right. So this is a great follow. I don't know who this Mel is, Village Crazy Lady on X, but she's got some great tweets. She says, San Marcos, Texas, a city of just 70,000 people, identified that its residents were sending 4.434 million tax dollars to Israel each year. So the city council drafted a resolution calling for the reallocation of those funds toward domestic priorities. So now Greg Abbott is threatening to cut the city off from all future state contracts if it adopts this resolution. Look at that condescending tone and mockery this so-called fiscal conservative uses when talking about the reallocation. Which says, these politicians have zero loyalty to our country. They are total traitors. Strong words there, but you know what? Freedom of speech. You know what I'm saying? Let's see what else we got. Glenn Greenwald. I love Glenn Greenwald. Independent of all else, it's truly remarkable how frequently American elected officials wake up to speak about Israel, vow to serve Israel, issue new policies to protect Israel and punish its critics, pass laws and resolutions about Israel, issue executive orders about Israel. It is remarkable. It seems to happen a lot, right? Governor did it in Texas. Our governor did it here in Florida. Our city council did it. I think Kristi Noem passed it. There are a number of states and cities have passed and said, look, anti-Semitism, we're following the IHRA definition. So don't do it. You'll get in trouble, right? Whatever that trouble means. Mostly it's like, hey, they're trying to forbid governments from having any action. But, you know, I think scope creep could get to regular American citizens. All right, Texas will not tolerate boycotts of a foreign country 7,000 miles away. Texas will, however, tolerate child drag shows protected by armed Antifa members in Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Good observation. You know, it's actually anti-Texan? Banning localities and people from exercising their First Amendment rights because your donors want you to shut down all opposition to their genocide. This comes from the classical liberal caucus of Texas. And then they posted a meme to follow up, and they show the MAGA people over here on the left. I love this thing, First Amendment. And then they have somebody that looks Palestinian, I guess, saying F Israel. And they're like, you will be deported. Right. So they're kind of making the point that there's a lack of freedom of speech here. This person, Chris Brunet, says Texans are, hate using this language on the show, cucks for tolerating this. Freedom to boycott is freedom of speech. Greg Abbott is an enemy of freedom. I do agree, and I was an oversight on picking that one. I would have just used a euphemism, but I don't know a euphemism for that particular word. Anyway, why is our government like this? Good question, the Quartering. Why are they? Today, I learned Israel is inside of Texas. I love this. This is great, Adam. Yes, apparently Texas forgot its scope of responsibility, but it happens to be along that same border and within it of Texas. Say, what else we got? So basically, we just need to convince Greg Abbott that the ridiculous giant Hindu monkey god statue in Texas is anti-Semitic. I assume that there's a Hindu monkey god statue. That's what I assume, which would be, what's his name? Hanuman. That's the Hindu monkey god, Hanuman, which I actually have one. I don't have it within reach. I'd show it to you. But one of my wife's friends who lives in Indonesia, got it for me, I think, while she was on a trip to Bali. Anyway, side note. All right, what else we got? Stop sending American money to Israel. Anyone who disagrees, F you. Can't deport me, Hot Wheels. Fair enough. I like it. I love the defiance. We should be American. America is about defiance. That's who we are as a country. We're defiant, right? And our government should know it. And they should be really hesitant to start passing any laws that would interfere with our defiance. What else we got? I think this is the last one. Yeah. I just want a governor who loves his state as much as Greg Abbott loves Israel. I mean, fair point. You know, at some point, we got to hold these guys accountable and say, knock it off. Maintain your focus where it's supposed to be, right? Your focus is in Texas. If you're DeSantis, your focus is Florida, you know, and to everybody else, I will criticize Israel and any other country or government as I choose. All right, what else we got? Let's see. Trump versus MS-13. This one came up. This was kind of funny. Let's see. Where is that? Let's see. I think it's this one. Yeah. So, you know what? Let me show the video. This video was so funny. This is just funny. Like, there's so much to say about this video. It's too hilarious.
He wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
But wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles.
I mean, I'm going to get myself in so much trouble here. I'm going to rewind that. I want you to listen to it. I want you to think about, imagine you're arguing with your grandpa and he just doesn't understand something. And you're like, but grandpa, this doesn't make sense. He's like, but I saw this. But check it out. Let's play that back real quick.
A member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There it is.
There's a dispute.
But
wait a minute.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He's like, well, wait a minute. He had it tattooed on his knuckles. But wait a minute. That just sounds like you're arguing with your grandpa. You're like, no, grandpa, that's not true. That's not how this works. And your grandpa's like, but I saw it. And you're like, no, grandpa, that's not, you misunderstood. And you're trying to explain to your grandpa that he got something. And I'm not trying to make fun of old people, but Donald Trump is old and he's a politician. So I'll make fun of him. Like, it sounds less like it's confident and more like disbelief. Like he's just like, but no, that can't be right. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. Let's continue watching.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way, but let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop.
He's like, that was Photoshop. And he's like, but it says MS-13, MS-13. Like, he's just convinced of this MS-13. It's funny.
So let me
that was Photoshop, Terry. You can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the
there it is.
Because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay.
There it is. When he gets backed into a corner, that's what he does. He's all like, you know what? You're not even that important. Like, you're lucky to be sitting down with me because I'm President Trump. I don't even know who you are. I decided to elevate your profile. I'm doing you a solid, man. None of that has to do with, was it tattooed on his knuckles or not? None of it has to do with, were you sounding like my grandpa that I argue with or not?
I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news. Because
this is actually why people no longer believe politicians, or never did in the first place if they were wise. Because here we have a politician that cannot distinguish between a tattoo and literally a Photoshop on a picture. And I'm going to show it to you up close. So that, you've probably already seen it. But I just found this amazing. Here our president he is just convinced of what he saw.
When he
It's
was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on.
He
They aren't
is
there when he's in El Salvador.
there. Oh, they
Take a
weren't
look
there,
at the
but they're
photograph.
there now, right?
No,
But they're there
in your
now.
picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
he's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
Well, we'll take a look at that.
It's you do
We'll take a
such a
look at that.
disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something
All right,
else?
it's contested.
I like how the reporter's like, all right, can we move on to Ukraine? Because, like, Gramps, you're not getting it, Gramps. You know, like that's hysterical. Everybody that's a Trump supporter should be groaning. They should be cringing. They should be like, no, dude, seriously, no. Who didn't tell you the truth? Let's take a look at those images. Okay, so here's the picture, right? No, don't worry. We got it closer, right? And he's like, it had MS-13 on his knuckles right there, right? Now, and let's zoom into the next one. Boom, right there. That's what Trump looked at, was like, yeah, he's got MS-13 written on his hands in Times New Roman. Because, who doesn't get an MS-13 tattoo when they're in the gang in Times New Roman? And look at the difference between the tattoo, like the tattoos that were initially, that they were like, this means M, this means S, this means 1, this means, and it's funny because initially when this picture first came out, I thought what they were trying to do was to say, look at the image. This image represents M. This image, the smiley face, I think it's like a weed leaf. The smiley face represents S. The cross represents 1, and the skull represents 3. And a lot of people were like, okay, I can kind of see the other 3, the first 3. But a lot of people were having trouble with the 3. They were like, I'm not really getting how a skull can be interpreted as a 3. And, perhaps there are ways of getting tattoos that don't literally say MS-13, but signify to gang members, yep, he's one of us, right? So he's got these tattoos on his, and by the way, knuckle tattoos are not out of the ordinary. Like, I've seen plenty of people, they have, F word and other, plenty of things, pictures and all kind of stuff. So it's not clear to me. And experts came out and they're like, a lot of experts were disputing whether or not this had anything to do with MS-13. Right. But the funny part here is that our President Trump, really believes that MS-13 gang members have Times New Roman. I think that's the font. That's what it kind of resembles to me. They're getting tattoos in Times New Roman that are much darker on a picture than their actual other tattoos. Like, it looks Photoshopped because, like, the black looks just like somebody typed in the numbers, and then they went and kind of tried to do some, some filters or something like that to kind of make it look a little bit closer. But, like, they didn't even do a good job. I bet that I could take this very graphic right here, and I bet I could open up some app and I could modify it so that it looked more legit. Because, like, tattoos tend not to be black. Like, this is a very black color for MS-13, whereas the tattoo itself is like a diminished black, right? And so, like, I can't get over this. And initially I was just rolling my eyes because I was like, everybody was arguing about MS-13, and initially I was like, whatever. Like, people are trying to overinterpret what a tattoo means. But then I saw this video and I was like, no freaking way. The president really did that. Okay. So let's go. Let's quickly go to an intermission real quick. And then we'll be back, and then we will talk about a couple of other things. I think I'm going to make that 2-hour mark, and hopefully I'm not boring the crap out of you guys. But if I am, let me know. I'll step it up a little bit. Maybe I don't know. I'll figure something out. But for right now, let's take a quick break. Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoy the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we're back. I wanted to make a couple points here real quick. My VA lady points out I'm learning a lot about video editing, and I believe nothing I see in video/photo form on the internet. Nothing. That's a good position to take. Start with skepticism, because there are people out there that are very, very good at it. I'm not so good. Like, I couldn't take two different pictures with two different lightings and merge them together to make them look like one picture. I think there are some people that can. I am not one of those people. And then there's also AI. So you got to watch out for that. And, a lot of times when I see something, I wait I wait for a bunch of comments, and then I look through to see what other smarter people have said. And then sometimes I will identify and say, "Oh, that's a really good point. That's probably that probably is good evidence that this thing that I'm looking at and is not true." And I'll give you a good reference for that. There was a video of a black guy who it was alleged that Tim Walz had engaged in inappropriate behavior with him when he was when the guy was a student, when Tim Walz was a teacher or whatever. And the video was really weird, and it was going around, and people were like, "Oh yeah, this is his testimony." And I was like, and it was weird because, like, the guy had supposedly grown up in the US and went to this high school. And when I went to look it up, the first thing that I noticed is that he pronounced the high school incorrectly while having a general, standard, I guess, way of pronouncing other English words. So I was like, I mean, if you're a foreigner, if you come from a different country, then you might pronounce things a little bit differently than Americans. But if you grew up in this country, then the likelihood is that you're going to pronounce many things, particularly names, the same way. It's not always true. There are some people that have just interesting pronunciations of things. Like, I have a friend, he doesn't say Putin, he says Putin. And I don't know why he says that, but it drives me bonkers. But anyway, so one of the people in that, in the comments of that video, they were pointing out, they were like, "Yeah, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't seem like something that an American would say or how they would say it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, it ended up turning out to be fake, completely fake, fabricated. It's like somebody made some AI and it looked pretty good. But there were some mistakes. So yes, be vigilant. Another thing I wanted to point out here. Where is it here? Oh, I lost it. Yes. Trump supporters won't cringe. He is their fake suntanned messiah. Time surfing alien says, "Yeah, that's kind of true, actually. Like, a lot of people, like, he can do no wrong." And in fairness, a lot of people were like that with Biden, right? And this is not oh, but what about this guy? I'm just saying, like, this is unfortunately common. Like, people get on in their teams and they support the team leader to ends that are no good. And we need to stop. We need, like, if I supported Trump, I should be willing to argue and say, "No, that's wrong, and I'm mad at him for that." Otherwise, I'm just not an honest and objective person. And you get what you get when you're not honest and you're not objective. You get what you get. So I'm not going to feel sorry for you. And then the last thing I want to point out, um, there's no comments coming in on Twitter. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see anything, and that's cool. Like, no complaint there. But I noticed that every day when I do my stream, there are several people, and I'm not going to necessarily name you guys, but there are several of you who on social media, you retweet my show. I just want to, like, since you're not in the chat and I don't necessarily call you out for something that you've said, I just want to throw out there, I appreciate you guys. Like, if you're not in the chat, if you're just listening, or maybe if you don't even listen, you're just like, "Look, I'm just going to promote the show." Like, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into this next one here. Let's see. First 100 days. I was going back and forth. Should I say something about it? But I was like, man, I didn't really pay that close attention to the point where I could talk about, okay, in his first 100 days, this is how I think the president's doing and what grade will I give him. I'm just critical. So I don't know that he would get a good grade from me anyway. But But here's this cool video that I found that almost made me side with the president and say, well, he's probably doing a good job.
There's kind of, I think, three parts to this story. It's Trump's extremism, people saying no. But there then is this third thing, which has been the undercurrent to all of it. And to me, I think it is the real lesson of the first 100 days. I mean, I know the first 100 days is like an artificial benchmark, but it's a benchmark that we are using. And
I can appreciate that. Now, I don't know that I ever agree with Rachel Maddow, like ever. I'm sure there's somewhere that I have, but the things that I've seen, I generally am in disagreement. So when I watched her thing here, I was like, oh, the president must be doing great.
If there is something to learn about what Trump in power is going to be like, I think the first 100 days have given us one very clear lesson, right? We know he's trying for the whole dictator thing.
Wait a minute, do we? Like, is he actually trying, like a real dictator, like North Korea, that kind of a dictator? See, definitions matter, folks. And we have to be consistent with our use of these terms. And I'm willing to bet that if Rachel Maddow pointed out all the things that she felt he was being a dictator, it would not fit how we've classified other dictators as dictators, right? Or maybe it would, and we would just have to argue whether or not those particular points are applicable to Trump. But I still think, like I have my issues with Trump. But I'm like, I don't know about a dictator per se. That seems like a stretch.
No elections, no courts, no resistance, rule by terror, right? We know that.
Okay, so let me just, I was going to listen longer. So she said, no elections. I don't even know what she's talking about. I have not heard any evidence that we're not going to have any elections. And then she said, no courts. Now there is this, the MAGA crowd is coming after some of the courts. But I will point this out because she's talking about Trump, not the MAGA crowd. Like a lot of them are like, oh yeah, arrest judges, do this and that, and people are getting hyped up and I think they're being a little bit absurd. But I will say this, when that first judge, I think it was Judge Boasberg, was pushing back against some of the deportations, the Trump administration did come out and they said, we will follow judges' orders, right? And so then they followed the legal process to push back against the judge's orders. So I think it's a hard case to make that they're just trying to get rid of the judicial system while they're complying with the judicial system and complying with how we do things legally in this country. And when I say complying, I mean in their response. Like you could say, well, yeah, but they arrested a couple of judges. In those particular cases, those judges are very closely tied to illegal immigrants. And so it's not like they just made a ruling and then they got arrested. They were active, or they're at least accused of actively participating in a particular behavior. So that's a different story. So I think we have to be careful. This is part of being objective, right? And I appreciate that she says, hey, this 100-day mark is just arbitrary. We just made it up. That's cool. But she could be more objective when maybe talking about the president and not lead me to believe that he's doing great.
We know the people of this country aren't having it, but I think what we should also know, what we have just lived through in this first 90 plus days thus far, is him screwing up. It's him absolutely blowing it.
I mean, that was his first term too. He didn't turn out to be a dictator then.
I mean, it is one thing to understand the gravity of his intentions, but I think it is equally important to recognize that he's really bad at everything he tries to do. I don't know if he's bad at good stuff he tries to do because he's not trying to do much that seems good. But the bad stuff he's trying to do, he's been real bad at that. I mean,
so Rachel, why do you do this to me? I just gave you a compliment and said like, hey, good job at being objective. And then you're like, he doesn't do anything good. Really? Nothing? Nothing? You can't think of a single thing that he's done that was good? Nothing? Come on. I can do that. Like he signed an executive order to initiate the shutdown of the Department of Education. That's a good thing. She probably wouldn't agree, but that's a good thing in my mind. He created Doge, which helped highlight what the government was spending money on. That was a good thing, even though Congress totally butchered that one, right? He freed Ross Ulbricht. That's a good thing, right? He's done some good things. I'm not going to try to list them all, but he's done some good things. Always be wary of somebody who's like, this person hasn't done anything good, right? I mean, yeah, I'm going to say it. Even Hitler did good things, but that's going to get clipped. But the bad things that he did completely outweighed any good things that he did. And an objective person can point that out and they can say, yeah, you did a couple of good things, but you basically ruined it by all these terrible, evil, immoral things that you did. Like, they no longer matter. It doesn't matter. Like, oh, you helped an old lady across the street? That's nice. And I would be willing to congratulate you. But then you turn around and you killed a whole family. Like, now I no longer care that you helped an old lady across the street. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, you technically did a good thing, but you completely ruined it. That would be objective. And so she's not objective in this sense.
It hasn't been funny exactly. It's too disgusting for that, but it has been the proverbial comedy of errors. Oops. I mean, the one word that most sums up Donald Trump's term in office thus far, heading to 100 days in, the one word that best sums it up is oops. Just because they're trying to do really, really bad things doesn't change the fact that they're also just really bad at everything they try to do. Which for this country is definitely a curse, but also in some ways a blessing.
Okay. You know, if she would talk like that about every president, she could be a libertarian. All right. So now what do I think about the 100 days? Well, I found something that I think encapsulates it very well. And this comes from a mutual follower, Jason Bessler. And what he had to say was 100 days into Trump's second term. Let's examine. 0 arrest, right? He has not arrested anybody in government that has been shown to be a bad actor, committing fraud or anything else. Like, the whole government, nobody's been arrested. Like, there's nobody that needs to be arrested or at least looked into. $12 billion to Israel, 130 executive orders, real ID enforcement, 750 airstrikes on Yemen, police immunity and militarization expanded, Doge missed 1 trillion savings targeted by $850 billion, federal spending increased Biden's by $220 billion. And then he went on and he actually added a second one. And he says, $5,000 checks. Just kidding. End tip taxes. Just kidding. Audit the Fed. Just kidding. Epstein files released. Just kidding. Have Pentagon spending. Just kidding. End Ukraine war in 24 hours. Just kidding. Welcome to the new ministry of lies and propaganda. So if you want to know my opinion on Trump's 101st days, I think Jason nails it right there. That's what I'm going with. So that's what I got. What do you guys think? Let's see here. Didn't he arrest a judge? Yes, he actually Trump arrested 2 judges. Now here's the thing about the arresting of the judges. I'm very hesitant to arrest a judge, but everybody is arrestable, right? Like, I don't know if that's a word or not, but nobody is exempt from being arrested, in my opinion. And so I look and I say, why did you arrest this judge? Now, in this particular case, the argument is that the judges were complicit in illegal immigration. I oppose that. I oppose them doing that because I think as a judge, your job is to be as absolutely neutral as possible, because when a case comes before you, I want to make sure that you're exercising good judgment. And so if you're doing certain things, right, that's fine if you want to do them as an American citizen, but then you need to relinquish some level of your authority as a judge, because I think it becomes a conflict of interest. So I would rather that my fellow Americans look at a law and say, I think this law is immoral. I intend to break it. So maybe they hide an illegal immigrant from the government. And if you're willing to do that and you say, I think this is an immoral law, I'm going to help this person, fine. I support you doing that. But I think if you were a judge, well, a case like that could come before you. And now we cannot guarantee that you are going to judge objectively, which is your job. That is what you do. And you hold power. So this isn't even like a job in the free market. You literally hold power. You can sentence people to jail. You could cause somebody to have to be deported, right? You can do any number of things with the power that you have. So therefore, I don't think it's appropriate for a judge to be an activist as well, to engage in activist activities. Leave that for everybody else. That's where I stand on that. Whether or not they should have arrested him, I think honestly, probably could have just said, why don't you come in? I mean, we have regular American citizens who are like, yep, I got to go to jail. I got to go turn myself in, right? It's that time. So I don't see why you can't do that with the judge. Just say, hey, look, you need to turn yourself in, and we're gonna go through the legal process on this and determine whether or not you are guilty of this alleged crime, right? Due process. But I don't think that it was necessary to arrest them. I think that was dog and pony show, and we should not tolerate it. Even if you support deportations, we should not tolerate that. We should be demanding that our government use the least amount of force possible and use the least amount of threat of force possible to maintain a society. And so if you can just tell somebody, turn yourself in, we're going to go through the process, then you should. You shouldn't arrest people that you don't need to arrest. If you're going after Trinidad Agua and you're like, these guys are killers and they've hurt people, yeah, then you're not going to call them up and be like, yo, you're an illegal immigrant and we suspect you have been killing people. So therefore, please come down to the station and turn yourself in. No, go get them. In that case, you go get them. They're a danger to people. So go and stop, prevent them from harming somebody else by bringing them in and then taking them through the standard due process. This all exists. This exists in our society. We don't need any new laws. We just need to say, again, what kind of society do we want? Well, I want a society that that uses the least amount of force to maintain that said society. That's what I want. And so when it's appropriate, just tell somebody to come in. And a judge, tell them, hey, we'll let you come in. But if you don't, we're coming to get you. And that won't be good. So that's where I stand on that. Let's see here. Freed Ross. Yes, he freed Ross. That is unambiguously something good that Trump did. And what's really great about it, it's one of the very few things that cannot be undone. So a lot of kudos to Trump for that one. I will. And more to the point, he promised libertarians he would do it. Now, I know he was trying to get our votes, and you could argue whether or not he was supposed to be at our convention. But at the end of the day, a politician literally promised to do something to libertarians, a libertarian crowd, at our convention, and then came through. I think that's worth something. Everything else that he's done, well, that's debatable. So I'm following Jason just for that tweet. You should. He's a good follow. He's got some good tweets out there. Let's see what we got else here. Yes, time surfing alien points out team politics is continuing to destroy our republic. It really is. In fact, let's talk about team politics. Let's talk about the Libertarian Party. That's my next thing. So let's go back. Let's see what we got here. We've got this. This came up from a friend of mine, Ben. He's a good guy. We have some disagreements every now and then. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with him being wrong. Many libertarians like to create more problems than solutions. Okay, well, you just described much of the Libertarian Party, much of the Libertarian movement. We do. We like to create more problems. Maybe not intentionally, but we do. We are our own worst enemy and tend to make things harder for ourselves. Also true. The LP will never win a federal election, so it should focus on areas where we can actually make a difference. This is where I disagree with him. Join one of the only libertarian movements that has consistently seen tangible political wins. Join the Free State Project. Fair enough. And I wouldn't say that it's the only, maybe the only libertarian movement in terms of an identifiable, labeled movement, a very specific entity. Sure. Fair enough. I can go with that. They have done some good things over there. But we're not going to talk about that. I want to talk about this whole idea of never win a federal election, so focus on areas where we can actually make a difference. So I'm going to disagree with that. Here's my problem. And I've said this before. We do not act like adults. We might be adults, but we don't act like it. We bicker and we fight. I got on the internet just the other day and I saw that libertarians were fighting all over the place again in different areas. I'm like, knock it off. Go do something constructive. Like here I am, I'm putting together all these podcasts and maybe they're great, maybe they're not. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add to the body of content that people out in the world have to look at and say, what is a libertarian? What do libertarians believe? How would a libertarian society look? Right? So that they can hopefully get behind libertarian ideas. And I think that other people should do the same thing. If you're great at Photoshop and, graphic design, go create some infographics that we can pass around. If you're great at making memes, some people are, I'm terrible at it. I mean, I think my rate of people even giving one like to a meme is like 50-50, right? But if you're good at making memes that communicate a good idea from the Libertarian Party, then do that and just be like, look, I'm not a public speaker. I don't want to do a podcast. I don't know enough about any particular topic to be, considered even close to an expert or knowledgeable enough to have a conversation with people. But I'm really great at making memes. So that's what I do. Fine, great. Go make memes. Hopefully memes that all of us can use more broadly. I mean, don't narrow it down to like, profane and, things that are offensive, because then you're going to narrow the number of people that want to use it. But go make memes. If you're good at distilling things into an infographic, do that. That's great. Remember that the resolution that I just read and it had all those numbers in there? Imagine if somebody in the Libertarian Party was like, I'm good at taking all that information and putting it into an infographic that you guys could pass around. Do that. I would show that on this show if I see it. Like, I would love for there to be just a body of work of like video and graphics that people like me could use on the regular. Like, if there was a source for that, I would tap it and I would promote it all the time. I'd be like, dude, check out Fred Jones's stuff. He makes a lot of great graphics. Do that. That would be fabulous. That would help people like me out, right? And then we could work in this symbiotic relationship to promote the party. But let's get back to that comment, right? Because the comment is, could we ever win a federal election? Well, as it stands in our current state, I think the likelihood of us winning a federal election is very low. It's not because I don't think we can. It's because I don't think that we are putting our energy where it belongs so that we can get these wins. There was an economist, what's his name? It's not the usuals that libertarians love. Oh, I'm trying. George Reisman. George Reisman wrote in an article. I'm not gonna be able to. I'm gonna paraphrase it very loosely, but he basically said there is no scarcity of opportunities, but there is, but not everybody is prepared for an opportunity that comes their way. So there's opportunities all over the place, but you may not be prepared for them. So let me put that into context. Let's say that I go to Rockler, which is my favorite store. It's a woodworking store. Let's say I go there and I find out that they're hiring somebody to, they're going to hire somebody on the side to teach woodworking or something to kids, right? That sounds like a cool idea. I'd like to do that. I love working with kids, with teenagers. I think it's fun. I haven't done it in a while, but I think it's fun. But my woodworking skills are not up to par. Like, I have fun with it. It's a hobby, but they're not to the point where I would say I'm going to go and hold classes even for little kids necessarily. So that's an opportunity that's available, but I'm not prepared for that opportunity. Well, there are opportunities, 435 of them to be exact, right? I'm sorry, 535. 535 opportunities exist on a regular basis for libertarians. Okay. 435 if you just look at the House, which I think is a little bit easier, right? I think the senators are a little bit more challenging because you only get 2 per whole state, whereas your representatives represent a portion of the state. So I think those are easier to win. So 435, 535 if you want to be really take it a little bit more broadly. Those are all opportunities. What have we done to prepare for those? Or are we just like me, not prepared to be able to teach that that woodworking lesson to children because you haven't built your skills up to that point, right? And there are opportunities all over the place. I'm sure somewhere in Jacksonville there is a surgeon position that's available, and guess who? It's an opportunity, but it's not an opportunity for me because I haven't done the requisite work to be ready for when that opportunity arises. I love this phrase: luck favors the prepared. If the Libertarian Party wants to win these kind of elections, now, are we going to win massive numbers in Congress? No. But should we be able to win at least one seat? Yes. We should be able to win at least one seat somewhere. We need to organize and figure out how to make that happen. Just like the Free State, what they did, they said, all right, we're going to set up a Free State project. We're going to identify a state that we think we can have a major impact on. And they evaluated all the states and they came up with New Hampshire. And they said, New Hampshire, based on the current laws, based on the climate, the political climate, based on, its size and all this other stuff, we think we can have a really huge major impact there. So we're going to move there and we're going to encourage people to move there. And I think the goal was like 20,000 liberty lovers were supposed to move there over some years or something like that. But the idea being, you get enough people to move there, then now you're the dominant group and you can have a lot more leverage in the political process. And they're not doing too bad. But this is the same concept. Libertarian Party can say, all right, let's start evaluating. The National Libertarian Party, Stephen, if you're listening, here's some ideas. The National Libertarian Party can reach out to all 50 states and they can say, what we want you to do, we're going to start a new program. We want you to start identifying House seats that you think are winnable. And maybe even the LNC, the Libertarian Party, the National Party, they can look and say, all right, here's some criteria that we think is going to work. But if you determine that this criteria is lacking in some way, then modify it as needed, document it, and come back to us and say, here's our modifications, here's why, and here's a list of a handful, 4 to 7, or I don't know, however many, maybe do a percentage of the number of seats that are in that particular state, whatever. So, some criteria. But then you come back and you give us 4 or 5 or however many seats, and you say, these are the ones that we think are the best opportunity that the Libertarian Party could win in, right? And these might be ones that historically are, maybe you do it 50-50, maybe they're historically Democrat, but the Republicans haven't gotten their act together, but now the mood is changing, whatever. Each state would have to figure it out and identify. And then they can go back to the LNC and say, hey, here's all a list of the counties, areas, not counties necessarily, but all the districts where we believe possible win could happen. Then the LNC could work and say, all right, now let's try to find people that can run for those particular seats. And we're going to put resources, we're going to dedicate some resources, because the fact of the matter is the Libertarian Party overall does not have the resources to go for every single federal seat with a huge gusto. It's not to say that they shouldn't necessarily run, but just saying look, there's a limitation on resources. So then you identify the ones that you have the best opportunity to achieve. And then you go for those and you see what you can do. You basically apply the same principle. Now, I'm not an LNC chair, but I can figure this out. This would be a professional way of tackling that problem. The problem being, how do we win a federal seat? You do it that way. You focus where you have the best opportunity. I'm not going to go and apply for a surgeon job because I've never taken a single course in the medical at medical school. I have no idea what I would be doing at all. So the idea of even suggesting the idea is absurd. But woodworking, well, I could say, well, I have an opportunity to be a teacher if I wanted. I like woodworking. I know a fair amount about woodworking, but I don't know enough. But I do know that if I learn more, I'll be prepared. So let me go prepare so that when that opportunity arises, I'm ready for it. Same concept. Go and prepare for when the opportunity arises for it. In our current state, are we going to win a federal election? We're too divided. We're too divided, and we act like juveniles. Yeah, I know, I'm collectivizing because there's a certain reputation that we have. And not all of us. That's how a generalization works. Not everybody, right? There are people that do act professional, and we're not going to get into names. I'm not trying to pick on any particular person because at the end of the day, there's so many. A name or two here doesn't matter. There's too many of us acting like damn fools for it to matter about this name or that name. So what? Go work on yourself. Go encourage others to work on it. Figure out where you could be more professional or where you could deliver more value, real tangible value. Like I said, imagine that the LNC did that, and imagine that people are like, all right, I'm great at graphics. I'm going to create graphics, right? So then the LNC taps that person and say, hey, will you make some graphics for these campaigns in particular? Again, scarcity of time. That person can only make so many graphics. They can't make graphics for the whole entire country. So it would make sense to tap somebody that's good at it to make graphics for a handful that they're really going after. This is how you can win. This is what we should be doing. We should be looking for opportunities, and we should be bringing ourselves to a point where instead of fighting with each other and arguing about this and that, we figure out where I can be of value that other people can use the things that I'm creating or doing, right? If you're a speaker, then speak a lot. Like, think about Dave Smith. He goes and he debates about anti-war and all these other topics. And what happens? People use all his content all over the place. So they don't have to. They can be like, man, he made a really great point here. That's how we should all be doing. Are we going to all rise to the level of Dave Smith? No. But some of you could rise to some level that's appropriate for you, that still brings value to other people. And I'm going to tell you, it's not in calling each other out. That has got to go. Calling people out, like, so what? You've been doing it for years. Have we won anything after that? No, we haven't. It's a failed strategy. So stop it. Grow up. Speaking of, here's what Stephen Nikila said, our national chair. He said, I'm going to pull this up on my screen so I can read it here. He said, as chair of the Libertarian National Committee, let me be unequivocal. The homophobic and dehumanizing language used by the Colorado LP chair, Hannah Goodman, is vile, unprofessional, and fundamentally incompatible with the principles of this party. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a full-blown meltdown on an official party account fueled by arrogance and total lack of respect for the people we're supposed to represent. And this is someone who once ran for LNC vice chair. Okay, now he's calling somebody out. Generally would disagree with this, right? In fair criticism to Stephen, number one, I think it's good to point these things out as a leader and say, hey, as the leader, like I'm going to call attention to certain things and say this is inappropriate. I think we should be mindful about specifically naming people because it just ends up getting into a fight. And everybody, remember the team politics we were talking about? Same thing in the Libertarian Party. People get on their teams. They're like, I'm team Stephen. I'm team Hannah Goodman. I'm team whatever, right? Mises Caucus, Liberal Caucus, whatever. And then they get on their teams and they're so busy throwing rocks at the other team that they don't even recognize when their own team is doing something that's unproductive and unuseful. So he goes on to say, no serious political party would tolerate this kind of behavior from a leader, and neither will we. He's correct. For our leaders, we should have a very, very high bar for their behavior. If you can't represent the party without slurs, tantrums, and disgrace, then step aside. I agree. You should. And I've told more than one person that to their face. So unlike some of you who get online, you run with your super duper charged keyboard, I actually will tell people, I've called people up and been like, hey, look, I don't like the attitude that you expressed, but I'm expecting you to step down now. Like I've called people and told them that. And I've told people to their face that I have problems, right? If you're going to call somebody out, start with direct contact. Call them up, go visit them, and say, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. It's online nonsense. It just ends up in just pissing on each other all over the place. And it's not getting us anywhere. I will not look the other way. I will not stay quiet, and I will not allow our mission to be hijacked by those more interested in attention than principle. Okay. I think we're getting a little bit subjective into people's intent, right? Maybe people are looking for attention. Maybe they have principles that need to be re-examined. And I think that's the case for some people. I think some people, it's not that they're wanting attention per se. I mean, all of us to some degree on the internet want attention. That's what we're there for. That's the whole purpose of it. You put something out there and you see what likes you get out of it. And you go, oh, wow, a lot of people agree with me. Or no, people don't agree with me. Or the algorithm is punishing me. And maybe people would have agreed with me if they had seen it. This party will have standards, period. I think we should. I think we should absolutely have standards. Why? Because we are the underdog. We are the small party, the small fish in a giant pond. That means everything we have to do has to be harder and tougher than the other guys. That's how you compete. If I started a brand new business right now and I wanted to compete, let's say I started a brand new social media network, right? I'm like, all right, we're gonna start this new social media app. The competition's already out there. They're already established. They've already kind of laid out like how social media operates. So I have to do something novel. I have to like really think about it and go, okay, what can I do that they're not doing? How can I get the attention of people that prefer their attention right now where they are? Right? That's what it means to be an underdog. It would be the same thing. The Libertarian Party has to do that. We cannot do that if we're fighting each other and we're acting unprofessional. We have to get on our A game, our A++ game. That's where we have to be. And if we're not going to do that, close up shop and join another party. Seriously, I'm not joking. Because I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't know if it's worth it to be in the Libertarian Party. Not because of the ideals, because of the friggin' people. You can't get your act together. I should get on Twitter and rarely see a Twitter beef between libertarians. And I've engaged in it. And I appreciate people that have called me out and said, DL, I thought you were against that. Knock it off. And you should. You should be like whether I'm an officer or not, you should. You should be like, DL, how is that edifying our movement? How does that advance our movement? Yeah, I could talk about, hey, this person over here, they're a bad egg and they do all these terrible things. Does that get you any more liberty? No, it does not. If you oppose deportations, does that stop any deportations? No, it doesn't. If you think that Donald Trump hasn't done very good in his first 100 days, does that communicate that to other Americans who might need to take a second look at whether or not their president has done a good job? No, it doesn't. Right? Does it stop wars? No, it doesn't. Does it stop our money being used and given to other countries or anybody or any entity? No, it doesn't. It doesn't do any of that. All it does is allow you to pat yourself on the back, high five your fellow team, and go, look what I said about them. Ha ha, they're not a real libertarian. Great. And you're not producing any real work. Because my son's not going to grow up to a freer world because you've been busy criticizing somebody for umpteen years. Go do something constructive. You don't like Dave's voice? You don't like my voice? Then go create your own. Go elevate a voice you do like. Promote them and show everybody, hey, this is a better idea. When you compete in the business world, you are trying to compete for somebody's dollar. You are trying to say, let me use this example. I'm using my son's crayons here. Let's say this is a green one. You can't see it because the green screen is making it look like it's invisible, but it's kind of there. And then here's a yellow one. The green screen is not catching it. Okay, but this is, I promise you, the green. Is there another color here? No, this is the only two he's got here. Okay, so imagine that this green one is the competition. That's what they're selling. And imagine I want to sell you this yellow one. I'm going to convince you that this one is better, so therefore you should buy this one instead. But if I just tell you this one's terrible, this one's terrible, this one's terrible, and that's it, then you're just going to be like, okay, well, it's terrible. But if you're not having a problem with it, if you're like, well, it's no issue to me, then you might say, okay, I don't need to buy his product because all he's doing is just complaining about the product that I'm using, which seems to work for me just fine. But if I were to go, okay, you got this green one, and yeah, it marks on your paper, but have you tried this yellow one? Man, I tell you what, this one is really going to amplify what you're drawing. They're going to be more vibrant. The colors are going to stand out better, right? If I just kind of beef it up and I promote it, now you have to be like, well, do I want to continue using this green one? It's okay, but maybe it could be better. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should buy the yellow one. That is how we compete in the arena of ideas. Rather than saying, so-and-so is a terrible person, look what they did. You could say, hey, look at this person here. Just take someone's attention away from the bad person and put it on the good person, the person that you like. Do that. Promote that person, whether it's me, Dave Smith, or somebody else, whatever. Go and promote it. That's how we win. That's how we can get federal election wins. That's how we can get local wins. Is that how we're going to get the presidential win? It would be. I think that's much further of a goal, like way out there, Okay. I don't think it's likely, but that would be how it happens. You have to show everybody that you're better. That's part of Donald Trump's pitch. Make America great again. I'm going to make things better for you. Things aren't as good as they could be. Yeah, he beat up on the media and he beat up on Biden and every other opponent. But the core of his message was, I'm going to deliver something that you like better. The Libertarian Party needs to do the same thing. We've got something better. I've said this before. My wife and I know other libertarians whose wives are not libertarian have said the same thing. They would not want to be in the party and they would not have anything to do with it because y'all are just a bunch of bickering women. I mean, they didn't really say women. I embellished, but they do. Like my wife would never join the party and get active in it. She supports me because she's my wife and she's a lovely person, right? And she wants me to do well, which by the way, I just want to give her a shout out. This last couple of weeks, I've been like, God, I got to stream some more so I can get on this Rumble program. And then like last night, I'm like, I didn't make the 2 hours that I needed to ensure that a 1 hour show in the morning would get me there. So I got to get up early and I got to do a longer show. I'm like, so can you work with me? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. Right. So thank you so much, lovely wife. If and when you ever listen to this show or this particular episode, but this is how we win. We win by producing something that other people want. Nobody wants a bunch of bickering and fighting. So my wife, she'll never join the party. Not for, because she'll be like, I'm not really interested in fighting all this stuff. Like if you occasionally want me to come and talk about an issue that I care about, sure, I'll do that. But I'm not getting into this fighting. She doesn't want to, she wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that you guys spend so much time boasting about who blocked you and how so-and-so is a terrible person. They did this, they did that, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. It's not winning people. So stop it, you bunch of dummies. Like, how is it that you guys read? Sorry, I'm going on a rant here. I know. How is it that we, and I'm going to put it in we because I'm sometimes guilty. Okay. How is it that we read all of these books and learn all of this information and we seem to have no social skills? Don't give me we're full of autists. That's a lazy argument. You guys function in the world. You have friends, you go to parties, you do all these things. Nah, knock it off. All right. What else did Stephen have to say? Because there's a little bit more there. So then he said, for the record, I'm not trying to play the free speech police. Say what you want in your personal capacity. I don't care. But when you speak in the official capacity of an organization, especially one I'm leading, you're held to a higher standard, as it should be. I authored the motion to create the LNC Ethics Committee to establish board standards. I believe in accountability. I do too. I think that would be good. Last one here. He goes on, he says, and I love these rules. If you make the group look weak or damage the organization, you'll hear from me. 2, don't dish it if you can't take it. I have seen a lot of people. They'll go after somebody, and then when things hit the fan, all of a sudden they run into the corner and they're like, why is everybody attacking me? I don't know, because you threw a rock. You threw a rock at a group of people, and then you thought that they weren't going to throw back? Don't be foolish. Number 3, if a Waffle House employee can keep it together at 3 a.m., so can you. Number 4, crap rolls uphill. If I'm held accountable for what you do, I will act on it. Sounds reasonable. Number 5, don't end up in the media for the wrong reasons. We need to get past this idea that any media is good media. It's not for us. It might be for Trump because he can spin it. We're not spinning anything. So we need to get in the media for good things. If we get bigger and better at it, then yeah, maybe any media might be good media. Now, here's what I did when I was chair. I asked our social media team, I said, look, when you're posting stuff, please do not post anything sexual. Limit the profanity. Keep it like PG-13 or better. Focus on local matters to the best of your ability because we're a local affiliate and we want local people to see that we're paying attention to local matters. And I said, if it's something that's a bit radical, leave me room to defend it publicly. Now, these are all kind of vague. They're open to interpretation, but the affiliate did me right. I like once or twice we had a meme or something that went a little far. We had a conversation, we worked it out, we moved on, right? But we didn't have a whole bunch of fighting and stuff. And then I told everybody in the affiliate, I said, look, regarding online in your personal capacity, I said, don't start fights. Don't talk about, don't criticize and run other LP members or affiliates through the ringer. Treat them with respect. And if somebody comes after you, I will defend you. I will step in and I will say, this is a good person. And I watched. And as long as people did that, then I would defend them. And every now and then somebody would, not very often, but every now and then someone would kind of pick at somebody else. And you know what? They got what they got. I stayed out of it. I was like, all right, well, I'm not defending you. That's what leadership should be like. Leadership should say there's a standard. And then they should ask people and say, look, if you do these things, I will do these in response on your behalf. That's good leadership. Okay? That's what we should be expecting out of our leaders. And we should expect people to act professional. Does that mean that we can't get a little bit rowdy every now and then? Does that mean you can't drop an F-bomb if necessary? No, it doesn't mean that. That just means, and I think this is the way to look at it. Leave others room to be able to defend you publicly. If you think of it in those terms, then I think most of this fighting about what people are saying could die down, or maybe not most of it, but a lot. We could get rid of a lot of it. And then if we just say like, look, rather than picking a fight with so-and-so who I don't like and who I've criticized umpteen times, and they're still behaving the same way they do, and yet I'm going to continue, instead of continuing to do that, I'm going to go do something more productive. I'm going to do something that maybe I'll create some music and then I'll present it to Liberty Dad. And then Liberty Dad will use it on his show. And so now his show is that much better because of my music that I created. Maybe you create graphics. Maybe you write articles and then I read them on the air or I direct people to them, right? And this is not just for me. I'm just using me as an example. Like the party could do this. The party could be like, hey, our very own Fred Jones wrote this cool article, this great article, and they highlight some interesting things. We encourage you to read it, right? That's how we win. That's how we win at the federal level. We give people a reason to support us. All right, let's look at some comments here. And then we'll get out of here. We'll see where I am. Let's see. DL for Candidates Committee. Joe, I can't fire you because you don't work for me. But I can talk smack about you if you keep... No, I'm just kidding. I am not running for any committees. I'm not running for office. No, and no some more. No, not happening. Let's see here. This is why I don't give DL my phone number. Can't be told to resign. But I need to go get that sound. I'm going to get that sound, the little drums. I don't have it yet. Let's see here. If I change my political affiliation, it's NPA I go. I will never go back to GOP. Abolish political parties, says that Liberty lady. That's fair. If I change mine, I don't know what I would do. It depends on what's being asked of me. Like if somebody were to be like, hey, will you join the Democrats? Well, like, why? Why would I join the Democrats versus the Libertarian Party? Or why would I join the Republicans? Why would I join the Green Party, right? Like, the answer is why. What's in it for me? What would I be doing? What are the expectations? Those are questions I would have to ask. But honestly, the idea of leaving the Libertarian Party based on the way y'all act, it's crossed my mind more than once. Just saying. So maybe get your act together because, not because of me, just because I'm sure that there are other people like me that are like, man, Maybe I need to go somewhere else where I at least feel like I'm being productive. Think of it like this. Put some music on. Yeah. Think of it like this. When you're driving, if the road gets congested and slowed down and you look ahead, you can see that traffic is backed up for a couple of miles, maybe a mile, roughly. It looks like a mile. And so then what you do is you say, well, do I want to stay here or do I want to keep going? And so you might look at your Google Maps. You might say, well, this route is a little bit longer, but at least I'll do what? I'll keep moving. Right? So you might be willing to take a longer path as long as you're not just sitting there, because it feels more productive. And I think the party needs to kind of take that analogy and use that as a way of direction. How do we make people feel more productive? Well, we need to keep moving. We need to keep doing things, right? Productive things. It feels productive to drive and keep going, even if you're taking a longer route. And you might be glad that you did, even if at the end of the day, it would have been the time that you would have spent would have been shorter if you stayed, which of course you wouldn't necessarily know. But that's why people leave when they're, why people who are stuck in traffic will sometimes take a detour, because at least it feels like you're moving. And if the members can get to the point where people feel like they're moving forward, I think we'd lose fewer people and we could actually do better things. Let's see here. That's not a question for me. I'm sorry. Let's see what else we got in here. Yes, LPDC, Libertarian Party of Duval County, made news for cleaning up parks and filling potholes. Yeah, we got a lot of attention for going to a park and picking up trash. It's not luxurious, but it got us the attention that we wanted. It got us like video in the news. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see here. Anything else I want to talk about? DL doesn't think I'm professional. I am not pointing out names, but the answer is no. That's not true. I think that a lot of people in the party need to improve their professionalism on some level, right? There are some where I would say it's not professional at all, but a lot of it depends on what capacity you're acting in. So, for instance, I will name somebody. Just as an example, not to beat on him. Think of Vermin Supreme. I think if he did vaudeville stuff, then he would be doing professional work. The stuff that he does is very vaudeville. And if you do it in terms of entertainment, then yes, that could be a value add. But if you try to do that and implement it into, like, say, a leadership role, I don't think it works. Now you're a fish out of water. And so then I would say that would be unprofessional, right? So some things might be professional in one way, but not another way. It just depends, right? The other day, I think I talked about Tim Pool, and I kind of criticized him a little bit. And people were talking about, he wore a beanie and a zip-up hoodie and a T-shirt to the White House for a press conference. And I said, look, when he interviews somebody, even a federal leader, when he interviews somebody, and they come to him, I don't see it as a problem for him to wear what he's known for, right? But when you go somewhere else, I think it's a little different story. You should dress the part when you go there. When I go to, like, my wife, her company will have parties sometimes. And when we go to them, I dress up, I wear a suit, right? I don't just wear what I'm wearing now, which is not necessarily inappropriate, but a suit would look weird for me in this show if I wore it on this show. But it would be appropriate for there. So it's like a matter of, where are you? What are you doing? Right? Like, that's what we need to learn. That's, to me, what would be professional. There's a time to use the F-bomb. There's a time not to. If you're a comedian telling jokes, lots of profanity and inappropriate jokes may be appropriate. If you're the leader of a political party and you're not known as a comedian, it's probably best to not make all kind of lurid jokes. Your jokes should probably be more tame. Right? See how this works? How's that song go? There's a time for this, a time for that. It's the same concept. There's a time and a place for most everything. So that's what we need to learn. That's how we win. All right, folks, I think that's it for today. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go check my numbers and see if I won. If not, You might be seeing me again a little bit later, but I do need to get on to work. So thank you for joining me today. And we will see you later, either later today or tomorrow. Thank you for watching. And I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.